The views, information, or opinions expressed in this broadcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not represent those of any other persons or entities. Furthermore, some of the activities discussed might be dangerous or illegal. Attempt them at your own risk. Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Peculiar World here on the Paranormal UK radio network. I'm your host, Jeff Davis. Hello all. Tonight's show will briefly explore the modern version of the classic myth or myths about love potions. Do they exist or don't they? For the socially awkward, the hopeless or desperate, can you make someone love you with a potion? Yeah, I am not talking about putting a roofie in someone's drink. I'm talking about the subtle or not so subtle effect a perfume containing scents including pheromones can have on another person's mood. My guest tonight is Mara Fox, who owns a business called Love Potion Perfumes in my hometown of Vancouver, Washington. She didn't start there, but that's where she ended up. Martha has a tremendous creative gift in between playing in various rock groups, mostly all female, and providing mood music for television shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. She's been mixing wearable mood-enhancing concoctions and decoctions for many years. Briefly, here's some background on Mara, and I'm taking that from some information she sent me, as well as an article written by Dana Sitar for, thepennyhoarder.com, and it's entitled Love Potions Are Real, and this woman makes a living selling them. So, not too bad. Mara was born in New York City, and at the age of 18 in 1983, she moved to Hollywood. She formed an all-female rock group called Precious Metal, and shortly after that, she signed to Polygram Records. They released one album. Between 1986 and 1996, she started the Venice Artist Co-op on Venice Beach and ran a shop there for 10 years, and she sold crystals, jewelry, wands, and Love Potion perfume. Her music career continued. She released on Gem Records, Chameleon Capitol Records, released 2 albums there, toured extensively. The band broke up, but she ended up joining another band, an all-star band called The Mix, with Cherry Curry and the Runaways, and some artists from the Knack. And she launched her Love Potion perfume in 1995, mostly online. Between 1996 and 2009, she was with Rocket Records, film and TV music, and she toured the celeb autograph circuit with several of her acts because she ended up becoming producers. I don't want to say agent because that would probably get me in trouble, but she worked extensively with a lot of other bands to help promote their work. Now, that is just brief because I have to save space because our interview runs quite a while, and I want to let Mara talk to you all in her own words. So, as people who listen to my podcast know, I have my own publishing business, and last year I finished publishing one of my new books, Vancouver, USA Ghost Volume 1. And a good deal of the book gathers stories from downtown Vancouver. So one of the things I wanted to do was to try and find a downtown vendor. And sometimes it's not easy. A lot of the storefronts in Vancouver have been empty, especially further south, closer to the Columbia River. And lo and behold, I saw a shop in a building, a storefront, that was advertising, and I paraphrase, magical perfumery. And I said, I got to come in and stop and see. And so, unasked, unsolicited, I made no appointment. I walked in, and the first person I met was at the counter, and she said, "Oh, you've got to go talk to Mara." And I said, "Mara?" And there you were behind the counter, Mara Fox, musician par excellence, as well as perfumer to many. So welcome, Mara.
Thank you very much. You forgot the crazy cat lady part.
Well, I was going to lead into that. You know, we can't reveal all to the audience at once. Okay.
Okay.
Now, it's interesting because when we were talking, and maybe what was your impression? Here this crazy guy is in your crazy kind of paranormal alternative shop trying to sell you books.
I thought it was a perfect fit. I was actually really excited to meet you, and I thought that would be great. I mean, my first thought was, let's not just put these in the shop, let's do a signing party and do it up. So that's what we did. We did an event. There's a thing that they do downtown that's awesome called First Fridays, and all the galleries and such do their openings, and we throw crazy parties, and we put out our new releases of our perfumes on that date. And if it's a month where we're not doing a new collection, we look for other exciting things to do, and I thought it was a perfect fit. Yeah. It went over really well.
I thought so too, and in a way it was, well, in many ways it was so cool because downtown Vancouver, Washington really is kind of a stodgy city, and so I was really excited to see your shop with all of the alternative healing crystals, art, and the perfumery especially, and so I was happy to do that. And yes, also this First Friday practice, which is getting bigger and bigger, it brings people to downtown Vancouver, and as somebody who was born here, I like to see businesses succeed.
Yeah, it's probably been the biggest help for us for getting our name out there, because we came up here from California a few years ago. We didn't know anybody. I hadn't had a brick and mortar shop before either. So taking advantage of joining that First Friday event night has really helped everybody know that we're there. So we're super appreciative for that. And we love doing things that showcase local artisans. And for us, I mean, we do perfume, but we do things we try to cover like all spiritual belief systems. Mm-hmm. So we have a little bit for everybody. We also have a lot of fandom, geeky, nerdy kind of stuff. We have items from Star Trek and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Doctor Who and stuff like that as well. So we're not just a straight New Age shop. We're like New Age. It's magic in all its forms. So It's fantasy magic, it's religious magic, it's folklore and mythology. We cover all of that.
Yes, and you have a little bit of, I don't like misusing the phrase fortune telling, but you have clairvoyance, if I can use that descriptive term.
We have readers. We have readers. We call them oracles. We have readers. We do on third Friday of every month, we do a little psychic fair, and we have 3 different readers of different disciplines each month. So we do tarot card reading, palm reading, crystal ball reading, tea leaf reading, runes, you name it. We try to get all these different people that read different styles. And for the most part, the modern quote-unquote fortune teller is really more of a counselor. You help people kind of work through their problems and give them a sounding board and kind of show them options and stuff like that. But it's really for most people, it's like a therapy session. I don't think that most people think that the reader is channeling the beyond, although we do have a couple of people that do that. But for the most part, it's just kind of giving people a way to, on their lunch hour, go get a 15-minute reading and talk out their problems.
Yeah, a reasonable sounding board.
Correct.
Yeah, and the people who I've met who do it are very nice and very conscientious. Not at all, can I use the word campy? Yeah,
there's none of that old-fashioned kind of scammy thing, like if you give me $200, I'll light these candles for you, and next time you come back, you give me $500. It doesn't happen like that. Yeah. At least not in our shop. We would never allow something like that, or anybody that practices like that. What we do is primarily 15-minute, 30-minute readings, and let the person talk out their problems and give them a little, life coaching or options. Sometimes you just need somebody that's not emotionally invested to help you make a decision.
Yeah, yeah, and as I said, I've chatted with a couple of your folk, and yeah, they all seem pretty well grounded, and we've talked about paranormal issues as well, because a couple of them have lived in haunted houses, and or they work in a haunted building. Da, 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 da.
I don't honestly feel a lot in that area, in our spot, and I actually feel more of it here where I live, which is behind one of the major hospitals, than I feel out of our shop. I don't think that the house has a resident spirit. I think that there's spirits around here. There's one or two that talk to me sometimes. But I don't think they're living in the house. I think they're living in like kind of the area of the hospital. When I lived in Hollywood, and I lived in Venice Beach, California, and I lived in New York City, and I lived in Jersey City, anytime that I've lived in a densely populated city with a lot of history of people working hard and striving, you can feel, it feels like densely populated with spirits. And when I lived down in those areas, what it sounded like to me was nonstop chatter, just like, 1,000 voices talking at once. And once in a while you would hear a voice kind of raise up a higher in volume than one of the others, kind of thing, and you would hear some actual words, but constant chatter. And when I moved up here, I was so surprised that it was all quiet. It's not anywhere near the density of population, so it was just, wow, this is peaceful up here. It's just quiet. So when something speaks up here, I hear it because it's the only voice.
Oh, interesting. I hope that you're in communication or hearing more positive things. It's interesting communicating with the dead. People die in a variety of different ways, and they've lived life in different ways. Do messages or trends come through to you?
Well, what I've been hearing up here is I think that there's a doctor who's been giving me medical advice. What happened was I'm prone to getting these muscle spasms in my neck and back. I've been getting them since I was like 12 years old, and when I was younger, they would last like 2 solid weeks of my head resting on my shoulder. And when we first got up here, I had one that lasted 6 whole weeks. I was so miserable. I had been to the chiropractor multiple times. Nothing was helping. And then one morning, I heard a voice just like somebody whispering in my ear, "It's a protein deficiency." And I kind of like perked up and I went, "Wait, what?" And I ran to my computer and I typed in, can a protein deficiency cause muscle spasms? Well, in fact, it does. And I hardly ever eat meat. So I looked up that even with like the Ayurvedic vegans, they give them a prescription of eating meat to get rid of, if they're the type of person that's prone to getting these type of muscle spasms. And what it said was that it can relieve it within like 2 hours of eating some red meat. So I did, and it did. I had never heard of this before. Nobody ever told me that protein deficiencies cause muscle spasms. Nobody. So it was whatever this person was that whispered this in my ear. It was a complete surprise to me. And I've had like a few other whispers of that nature since then. But, that was a big one. That was like a life-changing thing for me. I read that, if you eat meat like once every 2 weeks, you just won't get these muscle spasms. And I would try to remember eat meat once every 2 weeks. And if I start feeling like, my neck is tightening up, I'll go, oh yeah, I haven't eaten meat in like 3 weeks. So I'll do that, and I'm fine. I haven't had a spasm since.
Interesting. So you've got your own paranormal consultant who makes house calls, does not charge you lab fees or any kind of insurance premiums. I give you a spiritual thumbs up on this one.
I've got a ghost doctor.
Yeah, no, that is interesting to me, and it is kind of fitting that you are right behind or very close to a hospital. And it's nice that you're not getting this whole spooky chain rattling, get out kind of thing.
No, but I did get that in Venice Beach.
Oh, you mind sharing that one?
Oh boy, that was a long time. The problem is, in my view, that when you see them, they see you.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start noticing these beings, and I don't necessarily think that they're all ghosts. I think that there's a universe or parallel universe or a universe that exists along with us of things that we cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people rationalize it in all different ways, from aliens to angels to ghosts to demons. This is what religions are made of, because I think we all feel this, that there's something out there. I definitely do not think that all of them are just departed people. And I feel like it's almost like when you're inside your house and you have screens and the light is on and it's dark outside, people can see in, but you can't see out.
Yes.
And it's the opposite during the day kind of thing. Well, that's how I feel about these entities that live alongside of us. Is, when the light is right, we can see them. When the situation is right, we can see them, and they can see us. And I think that once you do see these things, they start being attracted to you. Hey, look, that person over there, she can see us. And they come to you, and they come to you en masse. It's like I felt like it was putting a Hollywood spotlight when you've got like a new movie coming out, and you've got these spotlights going back and forth across the sky, and people see them from miles away, and they're attracted to those lights. Well, what's going on there? So I felt like I had these spotlights outside of my front door, and it invited all sorts of things into my house. A few things that were just, not bad, and some things that were really bad, and some things that really enjoyed messing with me. My situation down there got very densely populated with whatevers.
Yeah, it's interesting, the description you gave and kind of your impressions. One of the things I've had to deal with, and other people do too, and certainly some of the listeners here, especially this broadcast is heard in the UK as part of what's known as the Paranormal UK radio network, as well as the US, and we struggle for definitions of impressions or emotionality, and it's really difficult because there is no dictionary of the paranormal. I've been described myself as I've never seen a ghost in all my time. I've had most of the other phenomena happen to me, and I've had different people. Hold a second. Let me pick up and put down. Sorry about that. I've had clairvoyants talk to me, and they've said different things.
Okay, so you had clairvoyants talk to you.
Yeah.
That's where you were.
Yeah, and one of them, actually, her definitions were based on vision, and she said, well, we're all beacons. Psychically, we're, almost like Yoda, luminous beings of light, are we? Hmm? And she said, we all broadcast at a certain wavelength, a certain color. And Jeff, your color is so dark, is almost black. And because of that, most paranormal organisms can't perceive you. And so they aren't attracted to you for that reason. And she said, and you're kind of lucky, because if you had a beacon of white light, you would forever be inundated with them. They would always be following you around, like a lot of psychics. So definitions aside, I guess I'm lucky. Yeah.
That's fast. I don't see auras like that, but a couple of our readers do. When you're talking about color, the color black is for protection and deflecting of negativity. And so that's consistent with what your friend said.
Interesting.
I have one gal that works at that reads at the shop, she said she channels angels.
Mm-hmm.
She will paint a spirit painting while she's talking to you. And she did one for me that was all purple, like purple and silver. And about 3 months after that, one of our other gals, who is primarily does palm reading, but she sees auras, she says, well, just interrupts while we're talking and says, I just have to say you're bleeding purple all over the place. So both of these ladies independently said that I'm just like glowing purple.
Uh-huh.
And purple in the theme of all this is subconscious mind, creativity, dreaming. It's a very open, crown chakra, very open. So that's consistent with what I feel as well, but I don't see those.
Yeah. Well, and you've kind of taken me to a point where talking about creativity, because I really, really admire you. And we've chatted a little bit about your creative outlets. It's interesting to me. I'm a guy, I'm mostly visual. It's what I see that interests me. And if I actually had longer, thinner, nicer hands, I would be a sculptor or a painter. Instead, I've got short, stubby ones, so I did a lot of woodworking. But I'm not sure, I'm not trying to be unfair or gender biased, but I've known a lot of women, you too, you particular, who your creativity is different than a man's creativity. And because you've been involved in music as well as perfumery. And so those are two senses that a lot of men can't be as creative in. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about your musical career. You were down in Venice Beach in California and New York. You were a member of a rock band at one point.
Yes, an all-female hard rock band called Precious Metal. We were together from 83 to 92.
Uh-huh.
We did one record with Polygram, and then we did two with Chameleon Capital, and then a few other little bits and bobs here and there. There's about, I don't know, maybe six albums out to buy.
Wow.
There's an EP, there's a best of, there's some soundtrack work that we did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was my lifelong passion. I mean, I knew from the time I was 8 that I wanted to start an all-female band.
Yeah.
And here, going kind of tying these two things in together, this is kind of a funny story. I had drawn a picture. I've always drawn pictures of what you want, like what I see my future to be, my goals. So I drew a picture of 5 girls as an album cover when I was about 13 years old. And when I was 28 years old and I got handed our third album cover, it was almost exactly the picture I drew when I was 13. I mean, even the girls in the band looked the same.
Wow.
And I called my dad in New York, and I was like, Dad, you know that picture that's hanging up on my wall in my old bedroom? Mail it out to me. Everyone was shocked. The label was shocked. It was funny, but I do think that about manifestation,
mm-hmm.
if you very clearly visualize the outcome of what you want, that eventually it comes to you.
Yeah. Well, in the Eastern philosophy, where somebody's intent and concentration and belief creates and alters the laws of the universe. No?
I think that everybody has. Your brain power is like, there's electrical impulses that is measurable,
mm-hmm.
and I think when you focus very hard on something, you're turning what would be like a diffuse 40-watt bulb into a laser. And I think that the construction of the world, if you get down to the most tiniest microscopic level, everything's connected. The air is not empty. Where you end and the next person begins, you can't even see it because everything's touching. So when you use the power of your mind and you focus intently, whether you call it a wish or a spell or a prayer, you're basically like you knock on that next molecule that knocks the next one and the next one and the next one, like dominoes. So you're putting your intention out there, and it travels the whole circumference of the globe and comes back to you eventually.
Oh, interesting. And I can see that. There have been some things in my life that have kind of happened that way too.
It's pretty interesting because a lot of really wonderful things have happened, but also like some really bad things have happened. I mean, you have to be careful where you allow your mind to get obsessed, because you can see something and go, oh, that's just horrible, like, there but for the grace of God go I. If you obsess on that, you get that too. Yeah,
the curse of getting what you wish for but not what you want.
Just try envisioning always the happy outcome of something. So where were we? Music.
Oh, music, yeah. Albums and was it you opened your shop at Venice Beach or formed this one kind of cooperative?
In the music business, in the record industry, you're basically either dead broke or filthy rich, and I was always in that dead broke category. So I had to do other things to support myself. So I tried opening a shop on Venice Beach, and it's pretty. Back at that time, it was pretty dense. It was very hard to get a space, and there was just this little strip of land under a parking lot that was undevelopable. Nobody was using it for anything, and I went to the owner of the property and I said, "Can I set up a shop here?" And he said, "Well, it's not zoned for it." I spent a year lobbying the city council and whatnot, and got the zoning changed, and paid the owner $1 a year, and raised $10,000 a year for the Venice Family Clinic, which is like free and low-cost medical care. That was our bargain. So it was me and it was 8 of us, 8 artists total. And I did that for 10 years. Yeah. And then, handed it over to a couple of guys after me to run it. But that was my straight gig, was creating potions, perfumes, magic wands, crystal jewelry, and such, and selling it on Venice Beach.
And that was, at the time, your nickname was not Crazy Cat Lady, was it?
I found out that people were calling me the Witch of Venice Beach. It was kind of a surprise. I was like, wait, what? Everybody calls you that. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, which may account for why superstitious crooks didn't burglarize you, maybe.
Oh, I got burglarized in Venice once. Sure did. Stupidly told everybody when I was going on tour, bye everybody, I'm going to be gone for 2 months, leaving Thursday at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And between 3 and 6 o'clock, when my friend came to stay at my place, the house was burgled.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And another reason why, never start posting pictures on Facebook that are free and open to everybody. When you say, oh, yeah, you're almost like you're asking for it sometimes. Yeah,
I was young and silly.
Yeah. Now, did that day job, as you said, on Venice Beach, in between then, though, one of the things that your stock rose in my eyes when I was at your shop, and I have this weird Monty Python sense of humor, and I am a big fan of all TV shows having to do with the paranormal. And so I said something, I can't remember what I said, and you looked at it, or you looked at me, because it was kind of out of context. I said, oh, that's just a Buffyism. And you looked at me, you continued looking at me, I said, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And so you had affiliations with them, musical affiliations.
Yes. After Precious Metal broke up, we broke up in 92, I formed a record company, quote unquote. It wasn't really a traditional record company. I put together an artist co-op with, at one point, I think at the height, we had almost 150 recording artists on this thing. It was called Rocket City Records. And what I did was I shopped everybody's music for film and television. I acted as the music publisher and, pressed CDs and had a website going. And shopped things to all different shows, and I had the good fortune to meet Joss Whedon at a party, and he was amazing and very, very open about accepting our music. So I gave him, he was the most wonderful case, and in fact, we're still making royalties off of those shows. He just said, send me the whole library.
Wow. And
I did. And he would just send me over like 2 or 3 pages of script and say, we're looking for something to come out of a jukebox in this scene, or we're looking for something to come out of a car radio in that scene. And he was probably more involved in the music in his own show than anybody else in his position that I ever met. He had this really great music supervisor, I think his name was Jonathan King. And Jonathan would pick, he goes, we have to pick 7 songs for each thing. And he goes through them. And so he'll like pick 7, and I'll get a thing, we're going to use this one. Oh no, he's not going to use that one. We're picking another 7, and that's how it would go. And so he used, I think we were in Buffy a couple of times, and we were in Angel, and that continued as long as he was working with Fox. And then this whole thing happened at a kind of turning point in the industry. Sorry about that. Back when, in the analog days, you'd walk discs into places, and that's what was still going on over on the Fox lot. Is he'd ask me for something. If he didn't have the master for it, I would messenger over a master, and then his deal went away with Fox, and he went over to Universal, and all the big companies started buying their own libraries. So Universal purchased BMG. So when he went over to Universal and he calls me for a track, and then I'm not speaking to him directly, it was somebody else there, and they said, oh, but they told us you have to call legal first. So you have to sign something or other or whatever. And I go, okay, call the number over at legal. And they said, we're not accepting anything. And I said, no, I'm not soliciting something. He called me for a track. I just have to, they told me I have to sign something. And the legal guy said, no, you don't understand. He doesn't get to do that anymore. Ever from our own library. So I think that's how he found out he didn't get to pick his own music from outside anymore. And that was the end of it. I mean, we had a song that was for the Serenity movie, and we weren't able to use it. But it was a great experience while it lasted. But it kind of set the death knell for the kind of licensing that I was doing when nobody was accepting outside music anymore.
Yeah, and that's a shame, because where is the venue for people who have talent, who have skill, who even have kind of a following? Where do they get a boost? And that's unfortunate.
Well, these days, and certainly, I got out of it at this point. I am in no way an expert, but the only thing that I'm seeing these days is you need to build your following these days, not in the clubs, but on YouTube and on Facebook. And that is the way that somebody's going to get signed. I mean, people just don't go to clubs the way that they used to. Mm-hmm. There's like hot spots around the country. There used to be hot towns where there was great music coming out of, such as Hollywood and Seattle and Austin and stuff like that. And the hot spots would move around the country. But the hot spot right now is YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know. There's
my generation. They didn't make this for me. I'm in my early 50s. I'm done.
Yeah, and also I'm of your generation too. There is nothing like live music, where you get just everything that comes with it, including the clunkers and the clinkers when somebody hits the wrong key on the piano. It's, I think, a little bit more endearing than something that's been digitally mastered and overmastered to what somebody thinks is perfection.
Well, I think that to me it's the opposite of that. I get very frustrated hearing badly recorded stuff that people are doing on their home computers and they think that's good enough.
Well, there's that too.
It's not good enough for me to sit and be subjected to it. And I like to hear well-recorded music or live, well-performed live music. I don't have the patience to weed through drum machine loops and things that are just poorly recorded, bad sound quality. I spent too many years in the music industry to be able to stand that.
Yes. Yeah, you're right there too. When the reason I don't know if you could hear me smiling at a certain point when I was talking, but I'm still remembering. I'm not really one to watch the Make Yourself a Star TV shows or the Star Searchers or whatever, but it is unfortunate and true. A lot of people want to be in the music or music business, singing or instruments, and they have no aptitude. They have no real talent, but nobody wants to tell them that because of their family and friends. And then those are the ones who show up on the show, and almost one every other episode they have somebody who's just terrible. And no.
I can't watch those shows, but I can't watch reality TV in general. That's certainly another way that people are getting signed these days when you do those kind of shows, I believe they take 90% of your income for 3 years. That's the deal. And that's basically a record deal. The artist gets 10%.
If they're lucky. I have yeah.
Well, yeah, if you have a band, you're splitting that 5 ways.
Yes. In the paranormal TV show realm is kind of the same way. I have a friend who was kind of, they use the phrase headhunted. That is, the TV show producers contacted him and did a number of interviews with him. And this would have been for a show on cryptozoology, Bigfoot, sea monsters, that kind of stuff. And and so they contacted him, and he did the whole process. You can cross-check me what you remember sometimes of what bands had to go through, but to be on a paranormal TV show, it usually starts with an email. And then you answer the email a couple back and forth 3 or 4 times, and then they call you on the phone, so you have a little phone conversation with them or a Skype call, and then you pass through gatekeepers until you do a Skype video call, and then they record it, whichever person you've been initially talking to, and then their boss looks at it, and then you have another conversation, video phone call with their boss, and they record that, and so on. And if you make it through all those hoops, then comes the offer. And unfortunately for my friend, they offered him a deal to be on 8 episodes of this TV show, and each episode would take about a week to 10 days to film, and they offered him $850 an episode and no royalties.
Wow.
And I bet you he would have had to buy his own food too.
I got offered a reality show somewhere around maybe 2009 when I was still in Hollywood, and they wanted to do a reality show around Love Potion, Magical Perfumery. And I really do not like reality TV. We went in, we took the meeting. I got convinced to just at least take the meeting. And I said, you don't know how funny it is that you just picked the one person that would probably say no to this. Because I think that it ruined storytelling on television. Storytelling got forced into over to HBO and all of the other subscription channels because regular television is just dense with crap. And for them, it's great because it's free. It's practically free for them to produce it, and they make tons of money, and they don't have to pay for production costs and all that. The deal that I was offered was, we want you to open up a store, and we will pay for that store for 1 year, and that's what we're paying for. And they wanted it in a high traffic area. It probably would have been close to about $5,000 a month in rent, and wanted to follow around. It was a decent idea. They said, what kind of person would go to somebody like you and ask for a potion to solve their problems? So they wanted to do it like those tattoo shows where they follow around the subject and they say, "Oh, I want a tattoo because, you know, it's to pay homage to my grandma," stuff like that. And they hear the whole story and then they get the tattoo kind of thing. So that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to follow around the people and probably find the people and have them tell us their problems and have us make them a potion, and then they would travel with them and show them and show if the potion worked or not for them. So it sounds like fun, but I also thought, you know, I've been building this business for decades, and I didn't want them to try to create fights between me and my coworkers and chair throwing and try to get this backstabbing, backbiting kind of stuff that they seem like they love so much in that stuff. I was like, I said, I'm not going to throw away the blood, sweat, and tears and decades I put into this so you guys can trash it in a year.
Yeah.
So I said, no.
Yeah, you've hit it on the head there. I agree. It's why should reality TV show be a bunch of cliffhangers about a bunch of people with absolutely no conscience trying to get over on everybody else? I mean, that's what Survivor's for.
Denominator.
Yeah.
It just brings out the worst in people and glamorizes it. It's disgusting. Sorry.
No. No need to apologize for being very, very clear about what you don't like. This is part of the ongoing thing. I have nowhere near the experience that you have in dealing with television shows, radio, and production, and the whole Hollywood thing. I've been on a couple different of these Ghost Hunter TV shows over the years, and fortunately for me, I'm limited. I'm usually coming on as a historical consultant, so if they want controversy, it's really easy for me to pick it out historically. Well, in this place, 25 people were killed. In that place, 12 people were killed. It's pretty cut and dried. Kind of to sum up, and I haven't gotten to this yet, I do find it fascinating that your scents, the way you put these perfumes and other scents together, what I call the gross scent, that is things that everybody can smell, even men. A woman's sense of smell, I heard one place, is 8 times more sensitive than a man. So, you know, we can get floral scents, we can get earthy, woody, musky scents, but below that are pheromones, those things that we can't smell at a conscious level, but they still affect the animal part of our brain, and that's what you do with your potions.
Well, I first have to say that I don't agree that men are less sensitive to scent. I think that it's on a person by person basis, because I have met hundreds of women that can't smell things, and certainly hundreds of men that are even more sensitive to scent than their mates. So I'd have to review that as science. I mean, that certainly true when it comes to sound, that women can hear higher frequencies, supposedly, so we can hear babies crying at a distance or cats meowing. But I'm not really sure what that would do as an evolutionary thing for only women to be able to smell more than men can. What I learned was that there's 3 different kinds of nose configurations.
Okay.
And when it comes to pheromones, some people can smell them, and they smell them as pleasant. Some people smell them, and they smell them as horrific, and some people don't smell them at all. And that's actually a genetic thing. And they think that people that smell them as pleasant probably have a happier social life and maybe happier sex life, because pheromones are essentially, they're human bodily secretions, so they're essentially smells. Mm-hmm. And they're the smells that come out in sweat, in the oil in your skin, in your pee. And these things are, what we have is clean lab recreations of human bodily secretions. Now, I was doing the perfume potions for 20 years before I added pheromones to my perfumes, and now it's been doing this 35 years now. And I mean professionally, because I started playing around when I was a kid, but I've been doing this as a business for almost 35 years. And my first reaction when I was approached to add pheromones to my perfumes, and I was over my dead body, because I thought they were absolute BS. I worked in the cosmetic industry as a counter girl when I was a teenager, and I remember when the first pheromone perfume came out was Jovan Andron, and it was disgusting. And they were using, they claimed, pig sweat in this. And there was only the one pheromone that they had found at that point, which was somewhere around 1980, I'm thinking. And since then, though, they have discovered that there's pheromones that there's like a whole host of them that come from different parts of your body. There's different ones that men produce than women produce. There's some that we both produce. And when I used these top of the line clean pheromones, I gave it a shot. I was like, holy cow, this is true. This really works. It's amazing how you can engineer an atmosphere with scent, with and without pheromones, but the pheromones definitely give you even an extra boost. So even these days when we're formulating things like spell potions that are based on old voodoo hoodoo recipes, even those will add pheromones to them to give them an extra kick. But we only add about 20% of our line we add the pheromones to. But scent-wise, we use the ingredients that it's like the information is passed down in folklore. Some of it thousands of years old, some of it, from different cultures all over the planet, like the Hawaiian culture and the Middle Eastern culture and Asian culture and African culture, and everybody has different scent ingredients that they have special meanings ascribed to. A lot of times it's similar from culture to culture. A lot of times it can be almost completely diametrically opposed. But I've been amassing this list, this database that I've been putting together for decades of what these ingredients all mean to people, and that's how I make a perfume. I say, we start out with, what do we want this to be for? Okay, this person wants something to help them at work, or help them get a job, help them to not be bullied at work, or help them be more popular, or help them with their mother-in-law. I mean, whatever it is, I can work out a potion for you based on the psychology of scent, and also knowing what culture you're in will help. There's an amazing amount of effect when you consider the psychology of scent on people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll share a little story about with you about my own pheromone production. Well, and it I think confirms some of what you've been saying. I lived in England for a year, and in the 1990s, we lived in, of course, a flat, an apartment, and it was over the Christmas break. And I guess a lot of the students may well have been renting a flat somewhere, but they went home for Christmas to their families. And of course, my wife and I did not. So we were in our apartment, in our flat, and I heard the mail flap on the door kind of go up and down. And I got used to that. That used to be my wake up. It was time to get up in the morning because the mail's here. And I would, get up, turn on the light, and go get the mail. And in this case, I said, I'm too tired to go get up. And so I rolled over. And I heard the mail flap click again. And then I could feel through my eyelids, my closed eyes, the lights went on at the entrance to the flat. And I heard people walking in. Uh-oh. We were being burglarized.
No.
Yeah. And so and this was really kind of critical in that we just got the money out of the bank for the month, all of our expense money in cash, and it was laying out on a table in the living room. And
so could they get it from the mail flap?
I'm not sure what or how they did it, but they must have had some kind of a tool or something where they were able to hook onto the door handle.
Oh.
Yeah. So they ended up getting in, and I could see the lights as they were, making their way through the flat toward the bedroom and then the living room. And I got out of bed and I stood there for a couple seconds in the dark because there was nothing I could use as a weapon. There weren't even any chairs in the bedroom at that point. And so I actually saw somebody silhouetted by the light, he was backlit, walk by the entrance to the bedroom. And for whatever reason, he didn't make a turn into the bedroom. He went into the living room. So I didn't know what else to do. So I just started screaming and yelling, and they all took off. So I chased them out. And,
smart of you.
Yeah, I didn't have much other choice, but there were at least 3 of them.
So it has to do with pheromones and smell.
Well, I was getting to that. I had you spellbound there for a second. We called the police and kind of waited, but in the meantime, I laid back down on the bed, and my wife was kind of shaking, so I went to hug her, and when I did, she got a little bit too close to my armpit, and she pulled away from me, said, "Oh my God, your armpit stinks." And that had to do with, I think, the anger and adrenaline and the sweat I was in because of chasing off the burglars, that I was excreting this anger pheromone.
Yes, it's an alpha male phero. It's absolutely true. And that's where it comes from. And we have a blend called Wanted Man that is predominantly that pheromone, and it can make women like very swoony, like, oh, this is an alpha guy. But it can make other men want to challenge them. Like if you wouldn't wear that pheromone to go out and play pool with a bunch of guys at the pub, because they'd start pushing you around. They want to challenge you. So we actually have that as a warning. Like, it's great when it's one-on-one with a female or a bunch of females, but if you wear it with a group of guys, you're probably going to have somebody push back against you because you're coming across as the alpha male.
So what I hear you suggesting I do is every time I get angry, I get some kind of a pad or a sponge, and I rub it under my armpits, and then I save it until I go out on a date, and then I rub it back under my armpits.
They have, that's how they got a lot of these pheromones, was they had people wear the same undershirt for 2 weeks, and then they got isolated the molecules from their T-shirts.
Thank you for playing along with me as far as the sponge and underarm thing. I wouldn't seriously do that, and I don't recommend anybody else who's listening do that either.
Oh, can I go even grosser than that?
Sure.
Okay, so there is a pheromone that women secrete when they're ready to have sex. It's called copulins, from the word copulate, and there is writings that go back to thousands of years that women would basically dip their own finger inside them and smudge a little behind their ears on their neck to act as a sexual attractant.
Uh-huh. Makes sense to me.
This is not a new idea. Not only that, but the Romans knew the power of pheromones back then, thousands of years ago. The gladiators, after they were done with their battles, they would massage them down or clean them with oil, and they would scrape the oil off of the skin and then mix that into creams and sell it to women as face creams, as sexual attractants, all of that.
Yeah, that does make sense to me too. So maybe I should get that sponge and clean my underarms after I get angry.
Well, there's one that seems to be one of women's favorites. There's one that's secreted only by men when they're sleeping or drowsy. Huh. It's the alpha male peace pheromone. It's called androstenedione, and it makes everybody feel safe and protected. It's like daddy's home. We're safe. A lot of people, they're used to sleeping next to their man, and then if he's out, on a vacation or something, then they can't fall asleep because daddy's not home. And you can spray this on your pillow or put it on yourself, and it'll make you sleep peacefully through the night. It's anti-anxiety, lowers PMS symptoms, it's calming and soothing. It gives the impression of a calm male presence.
Yeah, well,
and it works really well on animals, on pets, nervous pets, to spray some of that in their bedding, because it's that calm male authority figure thing is very, very helpful.
My wife, I used to, for my military duty, be away a lot, and I guess she used to wear my shirts.
Yep.
Well, that explains it now.
There's just one more because it's interesting. Mm-hmm. There's one that women only produce when they're pregnant, and it makes everybody treat her gently, protect her, nurture her, keep her safe. It turns people chivalrous like instantly. It's amazing. It's mostly women wear it because it's very feminizing, but some men really like it too. They find it like very nesty and comforting. For somebody like me, I was a rocker chick from New York, and I wore leather, and nobody ever opened a door for me or helped me with something heavy or something like that. And when I started putting that in things and wearing it in the perfume, it was astonishing. Let me get that door for you. Let me get a chair for you. Oh, let me carry that for you. Oh, no. You shouldn't be doing that. Let me do that for you. It's amazing how fast it turns people around, men and women. They don't know what it is. It's a subconscious chemical message. Whether you know the person's pregnant or not, everybody takes care of the pregnant woman.
Interesting. Well, and that leads me, plus looking at the time and the clock on the wall, I'm curious about buying some. So if anybody else who is listening wanted to buy some, you do a lot of business on the internet, don't you?
Well, that is our business, is the internet. It's 90% of our business is online. We only sell the perfumes and pheromones online. All the other fun, nerdy stuff you have to get at the shop. But it's lovepotionperfume.com. Okay,
great. And I'll probably soon have something on my website with links to it, to you in the store, and we'll kind of go from there. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to mention right now?
Well, if you want to say if for the local listeners, Love Potion Magical Perfumery and Gift Shop is currently located at 7th and Main, 703 Main Street in downtown Vancouver, Washington. We're looking for a bigger place because we've certainly outgrown that one, but it's really fun in there. We say that it's the number one place in Vancouver for kids to spend their allowance. There's things for all ages in there, and men and women equally there's so many fun things to look at. We have swords and Viking drinking horns and compasses and all sorts of things that the guys seem to really like as well. Books, magically themed DVDs, magic wands, all sorts of magical tools. We have probably the biggest tarot card collection in this area. We have over 300 decks.
Wow.
At any time.
Yeah, and I would recommend, if you can't make it there during normal hours, some people work, so on, there's still that first Friday nights too.
And third Friday. First Friday and third Friday, 5 to 9 p.m. are open house parties, free food, free drinks. A lot of times we'll give away free samples, prizes at certain parties also, which we're doing this weekend. So it's very fun in there. Most people don't want to leave when they come, and we often have people hanging out for 2 hours at a time in there. It's a great, really happy place and soothing place, and I hope you come in and I get to meet you.
Yes, me too. I would recommend that, and I've been to a couple of parties, and they've been lots of fun. And so we are winding down. Mara, I thank you so much. We had to reschedule twice, and you're just so agreeable. Yeah, sure. And so I thank you.
Oh, babe. You got to stay loose.
Okay. And so goodbye to you, and goodbye to everybody else who's listening.
Thank you, Jeff. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Our theme music has been Dance Macabre by Camille Saint-Saëns, performed by Kevin MacLeod. www.incompetech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you for listening to The Peculiar World here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.